Hello and welcome to The Black Sportswoman, a publication all about Black women athletes in sports history. I'm Bria, and today I want to talk about why Black women don't receive equal sports coverage. Let's start with actually a few fun facts. If Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird compete in their 5th Olympic Games with Team USA basketball, they'd be doing something Teresa Edwards did first. Next we have Maria Isabel Urrutia, who is the first person to win a gold medal for the country of Colombia. Inés Berguita is the first Black woman to medal in Olympic swimming. Competing for the Netherlands, she won bronze in the 100 and 200 freestyle in 1976. Next, we have the first Black woman to win a gold medal at the Olympic Games, and that is Alice Coachman. Alice Coachman won the high jump in 1948 in London, and when she was retired in teaching, she had to bring her gold medal into class because her students actually didn't believe her. Then we have Lucy Harris, who is the first person to score points in an Olympic women's basketball game. She led the team in scoring and rebounding, and she led the team with her efforts to that silver medal. Team USA women's basketball really is known for its excellence, and it really started with Lucy Harris in those first games. But Lucy Harris's contemporaries are much more well known than she is.
Pat Summitt, Nancy Lieberman, Ann Myers, they are still in the media and they are still well known. Well, a lot of people still do not know Lucy Harris. So I want to be known too.
Black women athletes across the world, across the diaspora, have made achievements and contributions to the sports world and to sports history. They often are not household names. At the Black Sportswoman, we want to provide quality and nuanced coverage of Black sportswomen, their contributions, and their careers. We have our newsletter, which you can subscribe to in the description box. And you can also subscribe to this channel where we'll be posting more and more videos about Black sportswomen and their contributions. But let's talk about why these athletes aren't often as well known. We'll start with what contributes to the media coverage. And I think there are 4 factors that contribute to why Black sportswomen are covered the way that they are. So the first one, of course, it all starts with slavery and colonialism. So slavery and colonialism and white supremacy, which values whiteness above everything else. That's probably the foundation. So we have a pyramid, that's the foundation. And then next we have hypervisibility in athletics versus segregation in all other areas of life. So there's a hypervisibility. You'll see many Black athletes for countries like the US, many other countries, but you'll see this contrast of being hypervisible in athletics and being able to achieve and represent the country in that way, but you'll have back home segregation, not being able to vote. There's also countries where athletes are able to achieve athletically for their country, but they're not given the same opportunities in a financial sense. They're not given the same opportunities to achieve in education, in healthcare, in many other factors. This contrast of hypervisibility versus segregation is also a contribution to not only media coverage and not being valued at home. Also, this contrast contributes to lack of opportunities. So next is sexism and racism in sporting organizations. There's of course lack of opportunities in many places for women in general to compete in male-dominated sporting organizations, but then we have to add on the racism to it. For example, the USTA banned Black players from competing starting in the early 1900s. Not only are these organizations that may have allowed white women to compete, they weren't allowing Black women. So the ATA, the American Tennis Association, created their own organization which would allow Black tennis players to compete and also just play tennis in the US. All of these things have led us to lack of diversity in media. So you probably know women's sports in general receives 4% of sports coverage. A terrible amount of sports coverage. There have been niche publications that have been created. This has not changed overall, hasn't changed the lack of diversity that exists within media and especially within sports media. UCF in 2018 gave sports media a D in equity in terms of racial and gender hiring practices. Also, on top of hiring practices, it's just tough to get into the sports industry, to stay in the sports industry, in media industry in general, in terms of pay. There's unpaid internships. There's all sort of barriers and lack of access to sports media. So in terms of sports coverage, there may be an increased amount of sports coverage, but there may not be an increased amount of nuanced, diverse sports coverage. For example, we can talk about the WNBA, which has a majority Black league, but each year there's a controversy especially on Twitter, about who's getting the most sports coverage. If Breanna Stewart's getting most sports coverage, but A'ja Wilson was the MVP. There's also every year a who's going to save the WNBA, and it could be Sabrina Ionescu, there is Breanna Stewart, Sue Bird, Paige Bueckers. So now let's talk about the tropes and stereotypes that exist within existing coverage. There is the hidden figures. So you'll see words in this coverage. Usually this coverage comes out around Black History Month. You'll see words like hidden figures, uncovering this hidden thing, etc., etc. So the first thing that I don't necessarily like about this coverage is it kind of feels Christopher Columbus-y. So one, a lot of these athletes that are covered in these mainstream publications talking about uncovering or this person you may have forgotten, a lot of this coverage ignores the Black press, which was definitely covering these athletes. There's usually coverage about these athletes in the Black press. The Black press a lot of it is archived. A lot of this isn't necessarily easily accessible to the average person, but the coverage existed. The hidden figures also ignores the fans, the people that are still alive, the family members that remember these people. Third, often it isn't acknowledged in these stories about why these people aren't household names. Next, the intelligence versus physical strength trope that is seen often in regards to the way Black athletes are covered in mainstream media. We can use a women's soccer example. In media coverage or in broadcasting, whether a Black player is described as having pace versus technical skills, whether a Black player is described as being quick or strong or aggressive versus being smart and has an IQ for the game. This media coverage also can influence or is related to whether there is a Black player being perceived as being able to play in the midfield in a more technical role, and also whether a Black player can turn into a Black coach in any sport, whether they have the IQ, the smarts, the ability to think versus just go out there and act. Next, there is the trope that is questioning Black women's womanhood. So there is the idea that Black women that are muscular and look a certain way are not really women. You see Caster Semenya fighting for her career, fighting to compete in her prime because of an organization's definition of a womanhood. And Caster Semenya says, I'm not going to have surgery or take these drugs because of your definition of a woman. There's also Serena Williams, who has her womanhood questioned all the time because of her physical shape, and the reason is related to the not actually a woman. Her body type does not align with the European white ideal of femininity. Serena Williams is also often picked apart for her physical traits and hypersexualized and objectified if she wears a catsuit or if she wears anything that's not typical for tennis. And this is something that I think about Sarah Baartman, who was objectified, put on display. Sarah Baartman was South African, picked apart and put on display in France. So the questioning of Black womanhood has evolved or taken shape in a different form of attacking Black trans women and girls who want to compete in sports. So you see these bills around the country who they're not only attacking and saying trans youth can't have access to health care, they're creating boundaries and obstacles for trans women and girls to compete in sports, and introducing things like body exams and physical exams that are very invasive just to protect women's sports. And as a hint, they are not actually advocating for women's sports. One of the last stereotypes I actually want to talk about is angry Black woman, and that is something that happens to Serena Williams probably the most often, but also Serena is the most high-profile Black woman athlete, probably the most recognizable and the biggest household name. But that means she also gets the most media coverage, which means all that media coverage is not necessarily good. So the angry Black woman trope is something that has derived from the sassy or sapphire trope, which describes Black women as aggressive, as domineering, as angry. So Serena, for example, can't defend herself, she can't shout, she can't raise her voice, she can't do anything that a white man can do in whatever sport, slamming their racket, crying. I'm thinking about Cristiano Ronaldo, and without being deemed angry, aggressive, or an angry black woman. So all of these tropes are derived and stem from slavery, colonialism, as I mentioned previously, but they're upheld by media coverage. The way stories are framed, the way the people who are interviewed, photo choice, cartoon choice, all of these are upheld by the people that are covering these athletes. So what the Black Sportswoman aims to do is just create better coverage. We have our newsletter and our website. We're working to create a database of Black sportswomen around the world to give them, to create awareness of these people and their accomplishments and their contributions to sports. We're also doing research and interviews to tell better stories about these people and hopefully talk to the athletes themselves, but also talk to people that have watched them compete over the years. Lastly, we really want to meet people where they are. We're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, and now we're starting to create YouTube videos. And we really want to do these video essay style and share information in an interesting format. So let me know what you want to see covered, any type of videos you want to see, but be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and our YouTube channel to let me know that, as a way to let me know that, you're seeing these videos and also that you want to see more coverage like this. So thank you so much for watching, and let me know what you want to see covered in the Black Sportswoman. Thank you for watching.